Today we're going to talk about linear functions. We'll start with the definition. If the equation of a non-vertical line is in terms of x and y, and you solve for y, then your equation will be written in slope-intercept form, which looks like y equals mx plus b. The constant m represents the slope of the line, and the y-intercept is the ordered pair 0, b. So this b right here is the y value of the y-intercept. If the variable x does not appear in your line, then that means that the slope is 0. That means m equals 0. Then you would have 0 times x would be 0, and you would just be left with y equals b. That is the equation of a horizontal line. So let's talk about intercepts. The point where the graph crosses the x-axis is called the x-intercept. This happens when y is equal to 0. The point where the graph crosses the y-axis is called the y-intercept. This occurs when x equals 0. So how do you find them? To find the x-intercept, you would plug in y equals 0 and you would solve for x. To find the y-intercept, you would plug in x equals 0 and you would solve for y. Let's do an example. Let's find the x and y-intercepts of the equation 4x minus 9y equals 24. They are independent of each other, so it doesn't matter if you find the x-intercept or the y-intercept first. Let's do the x. To find the x-intercept, we're going to plug in y equals 0. So 4x minus 9 times 0 equals 24. The 9 times 0 term goes away, and we're left with 4x is equal to 24. Divide both sides by 4, we get x equals 6. Now what you found was the x value of the intercept. Intercepts are points, and points are written as ordered pair x, y, so the actual x-intercept is the ordered pair 6, 0. Now let's find the y-intercept. We'll plug in x equals 0. 4 times 0 minus 9y equals 24. The 4 times 0 term goes away, and we're left with negative 9 equals 24. Divide both sides by 9, and then of course with fractions we reduce. What goes into 24 and 9? 3. So we're left with the ordered pair 0, negative 8 thirds. That's the y-intercept. Now let's define slope. The slope of a line is given by the equation m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, where x1, y1 and x2, y2 are two distinct points on the line. So your slope is the difference of your y's, the y from your second point minus the y from your first point, over the difference of your x's, the x from your second point minus the x from your first point. It does not matter which one you refer to as your first point or your second point, as long as you're consistent. If you start with this y up top, you have to start with this x on the bottom. The slope is usually referred to the change in y or the change of x, or more commonly rise over run. How much you go up and down over how much you go left and right. So let's do some examples. Let's find the slope between these 2 points, negative 4, negative 3, and 2, negative 5. Like I said before, you can call this your first point or you can call this your second point. It doesn't matter. I had this one first, I'll call it my first. I wrote this one second, I'll call it my second. So to find my slope, I'm going to take the y from my second point minus the y from my first point over the x from my second point minus the x from my first point. So negative 5 take away negative 3 over 2 take away negative 4. Remember, subtracting a negative becomes addition. It's like adding a positive. And negative 5 plus 3 is 2. 2 plus 4 is 6. And always with fractions you reduce. That reduces to negative 1/3. Do not put your slope in terms of a decimal. Leave it in fraction form. Let's talk about some special lines. We have two very special lines. We have our horizontal line, which goes straight across left to right. That can be written y equals c or y equals b, y equals some number. That has a slope of 0. Vertical lines, straight up and down, are another very special line, and they are written of the form x equals c or x equals some number. They have an undefined slope. So think of it this way. You have your horizontal line here. Your slope is measured by rise over run. I don't go up or down any, I just move left or right. Don't go up or down, move left or right. Don't go up or down, move left or right. So not going up and down means your rise is 0 over your run. 0 over anything is 0. That's why horizontal lines have a slope of 0. Think of your vertical line. You rise up and you don't go left or right. Rise up, don't go left or right. Rise up, don't go left or right. So you're rising a number, but you're not running, you're dividing by 0, that's undefined. For example, now, let's see if we can find the slope of an equation. Find the slope of 4x minus 3y equals 12. Remember the slope was m in front of x in the y equals mx plus b form. You can't just look at the number in front of x unless it's in slope-intercept form. So we're going to take this 4x minus 3y equals 12 and we're going to solve for y. We're going to put it in y equals mx plus b form. Get y by itself. We'll subtract 4x from both sides and then divide by negative 3. Now remember from a previous section, we're dividing the entire side by negative 3, which means we need to divide each of the pieces by negative 3 and reduce. Negative 4 over negative 3 reduces to a positive, and 12 over negative 3 reduces to a negative 4. So here we have the equation y equals 4/3 x minus 4. The slope, now it's in slope-intercept form, so now you can determine that the slope is the number in front of x, or 4/3. Okay, so how do we find the equation of a line with a slope and a point? Find the equation that passes through the point 10, negative 3, and has a slope of negative 3/5. Then we'll graph the line. So how do we do that? Well, our equation of a line is y equals mx plus b. We have an x and a y that we know that's on the line, and we know that the slope is negative 3/5. So what we're missing is b. So we'll plug in mx and y, negative 3 for y, 10 for x, and negative 3/5 for m, and we'll solve for b. Negative 3/5 times 10 gives me negative 6. Add 6 to both sides, and we get b is equal to 3. Now we have our slope m and our b 3, and we'll plug them in, and we get the equation y equals negative 3/5 x plus 3. When you write the equation of a line, you need to fill m and b in with their respective values, but leave x and y as variables, x and y. So how do we graph it? Well, look back here. We know that the y-intercept, this is the y value of the y-intercept. So we know that the ordered pair 0, 3 is on the graph. So we can plot that point. Now the slope, if you recall, was negative 3/5. So that means that you can either, so negative 3 over 5 would mean rise is negative 3, go down 3. There's my mouse. Negative 3 means go down 3, 1, 2, 3, and your run is a positive 5, right? 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Plot a point here. Down 3, run 5, right? 5. Or you could put that negative on the bottom and you could rise up 3 and go left 5. Rise up 3 and go left 5 and plot those points. Once you have about 3 or 4 points in a row, you can connect them with a straight line. And that's how you can graph a linear equation. A couple more definitions. Two lines on a plane that never intersect are called parallel lines. And parallel lines have the same slope. They rise and run at the same rate. Two lines on a plane that intersect at a right angle, a 90-degree angle, are called perpendicular lines. They have opposite reciprocal slopes. That means one is positive and one is negative, and that they are the reciprocal. You flip the fraction. So for example, consider these following lines. Let's say we have line 1, L1, and line 2, L2, and we know they're parallel, and this line 3 and line 1 are perpendicular. So if we knew that the slope of line 1 was 2/3, what could you say about the slope of line 2? They're parallel, so it's the same, 2/3. What about this perpendicular line? Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. The opposite of 2/3 would be negative, and the reciprocal would be 3/2. So let's determine if these two equations are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So we need to find their slopes. We need to put both of these equations into y equals mx plus b form and determine their slopes. Once you know the slope of the two lines, if they are the same, then we know that the lines are parallel. If they are opposite reciprocal, then we know that the lines are perpendicular. And if it doesn't fit either of those categories, then we would say it's neither. So we're going to put both of the equation in y equals mx plus b form to determine their respective slopes. Like I said, determine if they're the same, opposite reciprocals, or neither. So I want you to do that. Do it just like we did in the previous example, getting it into y equals mx plus b form, and then look at those two slopes. Are they the same? Are they opposite reciprocal? Or are they neither? Okay, we'll get some more practice when I see you next time.